It's a very special feeling to be back at Chalmers. Not long ago, I was going back and forth in these halls and worrying by if I actually passed that exam. And I think this place is very special because it's, by definition, allows you to be yourself. And a little bit weird, a little bit quirky, but with an ambition to make something happen. And I think a very underrated thing when you actually are building a company is confidence. To dare to fail and to have mentors or people to actually learn from. And I think that's why these kind of meetings that we have here today is so important. Back when I studied, I had a great opportunity to actually meet people that had built companies before. People that had been leaders before. People that worked globally, that actually created the modern world that we're actually living in today. And without those people, what we are doing wouldn't be possible. So if there's any advice I would give, is to learn from the people and learn from others' mistakes, whilst you create your own mistakes. Back in 2016, when I was a little bit waiting and seeing if we're supposed to go out and start this company, and I had a few individuals that thought, yeah, Robert, this is possible. Why don't you go after it? I was very privileged to have a few individuals that I met along the way as student and close, and to be very honest, over a couple of beers, where I told their story. And I said, okay, I have to tell you, this is the future is digital, electric, and autonomous. There is room for a new type of player. And they said, well, you're not wrong. This is sound logic. This will happen. They believed in me. They said that it actually was possible to do this. And that gave me the confidence to quit a well-paid job with a very thought-out career moving forward and set out to do something that I absolutely did nuts. And if there is something that I think is still a challenge in this environment that is Gothenburg, is to stick out and to dare to challenge the norms, the structures, and to be bold enough to actually make something happen. Unless you have the people that believe in you, that's going to be tough. Because being an entrepreneur is lonely. And you know things that others doesn't. You have a vision and ambition to make something happen. So you need friends, people that believes in you no matter what. I'm very fortunate to have two great founders. One of them is now my wife, and the other one, you can say that almost married with. And that's what you have when you are literally that kind of people you need when you build a company. Because the ups and downs are immense. And when you see a company from the outside that's successful, you don't see the time I collapsed on the floor, completely exhausted from raising capital. The first time we raised more than $1 million was from an angel investor. Anyone can guess how many phone calls that raise took. Anyone? Okay, I like the ambition there. 200 phone calls and 5 meetings. One was actually, I was in London. The angel called, hey, I want to have dinner tonight in Linköping. Can you make it? Well, I barely made it. But that's the kind of dedication and pain that you go through in building a company. And in building and making extraordinary things happen, you have to be able to bear that pain. You can't do that without great individuals and people that believe in you. And I'm an engineer at heart. That's who I am. I love technology. It's my passion. That means that I will always prioritize those things and discuss it and overemphasize it and, sometimes overdo it. And Linnea, who's one of my co-founder, I've been harassing her with the idea of how the future could look like for 9 to 6 months, and it's like going on and on. And so we had dinner, we sat down and said, and I was keep talking about what it's autonomous, it's going to be like, this is going to happen and so on. And she says like, Robert, I'm going to tell you this once. Either you shut up about this and don't mention any of this again, because I'm so sick and tired of it, or we go out and make this happen. So we did. The morals of it is that when you rig and raise a company, and that's something that I think by definition, a lot of people starting up the first company make a mistake out of, is that they seek confirmation of people that have the same belief systems as they do, the same way of looking at the world, the same background, the same culture. And what happens then is you get boxed with the same toolbox as everyone else, and the same toolbox that you have yourself is very comfortable, is very relaxing because the person will confirm what you're saying. And a lot of people starting up company make that mistake. I wouldn't say that a very typical startup in Stockholm context is 3 guys from Handels. Do you think they have any, so to say, different experience or way of looking at the world? Exactly the same. And in my founders, we have very different skill sets. Linnea comes from an entrepreneurial family and is way better at making decisions than I am. She is very direct and very executive. And that's things that I need to be complimented with. She understands things that I can't even comprehend. She has an intuitive understanding of brand, market, communication that I don't have. Philip is one of the most underthinking person I know. He has done it before he even started to think about it. And when we started up with the first pod, he didn't know anything about the automotive industry. He didn't have any experience of business. He's a self-made hustler. And he made the first prototype happen in 3 months. To date, I have no idea how they did that. But they made it happen. And if it were me doing it, I think we will still be theorizing which tires are the best to put on the pod. So for me, and what's really diversity is, Because diversity is not necessarily what we see. Diversity is in us, in our experiences, our backgrounds, in cultures, in what we learn. But to build successful companies, you need to have that diversity of thought. And that's more important than anything else, because that means that you will be complementing each other. That doesn't mean that always be frictionless. And I think that's, at the core, a very important thing. Have different experiences, different backgrounds, will allow you to build better companies. Not necessarily because it's comfortable, because it's not. It's provocative. People disagree with you. And I've seen so many cases over the years where 300 students or 3 genre students come together and it's like say, we all agree. We see the same thing. We have a PowerPoint. Our coach has told us to make an Excel. Have you sold anything? No, but we have very good policies. That's what lack of diversity of thought gets you. Because you need different ways of solving problems. You need different contacts. You need different backgrounds. And speaking of raising money, can anyone guess what the first investor in Einride was?
Your parents.
Close. Philip's mom. And she made her money out of starting schools. And a fun fact is that we got 500,000 SEK from her. And in hindsight, she told Philip that, well, first I thought it was going to be a discount on the inheritance. But I also did it in a company that I needed to do tax deductions. So if I lost the money, it was not that bad. And that's how we made the first 500,000 SEK happen. And that got us barely started. But for every SEK we raised, it's been a team effort and team sport. And then we raised 1.1 million. And that was on the back of a very weird week or two. So we literally were running out of money. We had 1 or 2 months left of capital. And we launched the pod, the first show prototype. And I was gearing up with the whole organization, which was 5 people at the time, that we should launch at Stockholm Tech. Because I managed to get us one of the pitch opportunities on stage at Stockholm Tech. I got up on stage, and before I even opened my mouth, the guy hosting it said, "Oh, I know this is going to be an awful pitch." That was before I started. I pitched, and then he says, "What did I told you?" So the existing investors, Philip's mom, and the team was in the audience. And the jury on stage literally told me that this is the worst possible idea. This will never happen. We don't even understand what this is. That's the worst 24 hours I had with Einride. Because this was before anything was done, before we had anything. Me and Linnea was in personal debt, a couple of millions. because to make this happen. And the clock was running out. And everyone doubted, because that's what the jury said. But now I can say with confidence, the jury didn't know what they were actually talking about. But that was tough, really, really tough. That's the only night through all the years with Einride I haven't slept. I didn't sleep. Because I was wondering what I got myself into. And the people that trusted me, and everyone else, if that actually that was correct. The day after, I woke up and spoke to Philip, Linnea, I'm so sorry. I mean, I need to improve with the pitching, and I'm so sorry for this. And should we continue? Should we really go on with this madness? And they said, we still believe. We believe in that this can be done. That's why we're here. For the people that kept believing that you actually can do something. We launched an autonomous electric truck at the same day as the attacks with trucks in Stockholm. That was the exact same day. You can't have worse timing. So none of the media in Sweden picked it up. And we needed to raise money, and we couldn't really, the timing in Sweden was unheard of. Then Washington Post picked up on what we were launching, and TechCrunch picked it up. And we got global impact in what our ambition was. And that saved us. So we raised 1.1 million from, again, friends and family that saw the impact and believed in what could be created. So we survived for another 2 months. Then we needed to raise more money. And as we matured as a company, these kind of close calls has been part of it. It's about finding friends and people that still believe in what you do. Personally, the toughest fundraising that we'd done was when we raised our first 22 million. We did that 100 SEK per ticket. And no Swede invests 100 SEK without having a dinner. So my personal record is 4 dinners in one night. And no Swede invests in you 100 SEK without having 3 beers. I gained 7 or 8 kilos in that race, but we got there. But building a company and making these kind of things happen is a lot of work and dedication. And I think that every entrepreneur and everyone building a company should ask themselves the question, is it worth it? It's not obvious. And building companies are not for everyone. And I think it's very important to be honest to yourself. Is this what I want to spend my time doing? And when I look at as an investor and other entrepreneurs and the people I would like to invest in, it's the people that have the answer to that. Why are they doing this? Are they willing to put in the pain that's associated with building a company? Because you will piss off friends, you will piss off investors, you will be abused by big companies, you will be mocked, you will be everything. And you have to sit there and say, is worth it. The person next to you, your founders, your investors, have to say, we believe in you. And that's what's been to actually build the company. And the absolutely best thing you can do. I love every single day of it. But I'm Bohuslänning. My grandfather spent their entire life carrying stones from a God-forgiven or God-forgotten piece of land where you shouldn't grow anything. And he did that for a lifetime. So I sometimes think about him and my father that we did that for an entire lifetime and recognize that I'm better off building a company. But building a company is the best experience you can have, but you need to do it for the right reasons and with the right people. And then you can make extraordinary things happen. Thank you.